Hello, friends of the internet. Welcome to a Interstellar Book Club book review. Oh, I left my copy over there. Sorry. Ice Planet Barbarians. I was going to hold it up and I forgot. Welcome. We'll introduce the hosts we have with us today and then kind of summarize the book. Here's Natalie.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Natalie, guest host today. Very, very excited to talk about Ice Planet Barbarians. So down below.
Hey, Max, regular host, and I'm very frightened to talk about Ice Planet Barbarians. So we'll see how that goes. Gang, I'm scared for my life.
Why are you scared?
Why?
Listen, we'll get into it. It's just it was an experience.
It was an experience. I'm very okay. Can we preface this with like the levels of intensity of romance readers we have here so they can understand the plethora of comments that they're going to get? I don't know how. So I guess on a scale of 1 to 10, Natalie, tell me if I'm wrong because you are responsible for most of my romance reading. So I'm gonna put myself on like a 4 average romance reader. Like I read it, but
it's a little bit higher than that.
You think so?
I think so.
Oh, thanks. Okay, like a 6?
Yeah, I think you're a good 6. Yes, because you're going more for it now than you used to, and that is my power. Because on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at like a 10,
a 12. But yes,
you know, I'm not trying to break the scale here. We're trying to keep in line. So 10.
We're tempering the viewers' expectations.
Yeah. Max, how often would you say you read romance?
Do you know I read a few, so I reckon I put myself at like a 2 or a 3.
Okay,
because it's in the repertoire, but it's low down.
Okay,
valid.
Rose says average 7. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, so we've got a range, which is nice.
Yes.
Immediately, head empty book, gave it a low 3.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Okay, should we start with our ratings and then get into a general summary and then non-spoilers?
Sure.
Sounds good to me. Bear with us. My camera keeps freezing, so I might be a bit laggy today.
That's fine.
Okay. That's fine.
Does anyone want to go first?
Sure, I can go. So technically, this was a reread for me. The first time I read it, I was not yet well versed in the world of this kind of book, so I gave it a 2.5. But this time, it went up to a 3. Not higher than that, though. It was not gonna get higher than that. But that's where it's sitting for me at a 3.
Nope. I'm going to agree with you and Roro so far. I also gave it a 3. 3 is like middle of the road. We could get deeper and we could like do more things, but you did a thing and I had fun. So here we are.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's going to be like a mid 2.
Okay.
Like a 2.5, maybe.
Okay.
It's fair.
Valid.
Okay. So before we get into more about the book, for anyone who's not staying that long, should we talk about what we're going to read next month? Oh, no, we lost Matt. Oh, no. Okay. Hold on. I'm going to pull up what we're reading next month.
Yes, because I cannot help you in that department.
That's okay. I got it. Okay. So let's see. It is called Terra Nullius. Oh, no. I don't want to show the Amazon. I'm going to try to do that. Okay. Here we go. I'm going to show the cover and then read the synopsis. Oh, there's Max. Hey.
Okay. My computer is a potato with a screen attached.
It's okay. So I'm just gonna telling people who are only staying for a little bit what we're reading next month, and then we'll get more into Ice Planet Barbarians. But if you want to join the Interstellar Book Club, we have a Discord linked in the description that is in all of my videos for you to join us and discuss with us. And next month for March, we are reading Terra Nullius by Claire G. Coleman. Jack was running. There was no thought in his head, only an intense drive to run. There was no sense he was getting anywhere, no plan, no destination, no future. All he had was a sense of what was behind what he was running from. Jack was running. The natives of the colony are restless. The settlers are eager to have a nation of peace and to bring the savages into line. Families are torn apart. Re-education is enforced. This rich land will provide for all. This is not Australia as we know it. This is not the Australia of our history. So it is supposed to be about the colonization of Australia and the indigenous peoples that are there. And it's a sci-fi. It's listed as a science fiction, and a historical fiction. So that's going to be interesting.
It sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, new to me. Okay, so who wants to give a general, like, non-spoilery plot overview? What is Ice Planet Barbarians?
I'm not good for this. I've read too much.
Oh yeah, you're like deep in the series.
Yeah, no comment.
Max, do you want to give it a try?
I think this is on you this time.
It's on me? Okay, that's fine. It's fine. I'm hosting anyway. Okay, so Ice Planet Barbarians is a very popular science fiction romance series. There's, I think, 19 books in the series. I could
19 books.
Too many.
Way too many. And no end in sight as far as we know of this. It starts off as a group of women who are abducted by aliens immediately from page 1. And they are in a situation where they need to get off this ship, and things proceed to happen which allow them to get off the ship where their cargo bay was dumped, which is on this icy planet. And when one of them, our main character, Georgie, goes off to look for help, meets a barbarian, quotation marks. And he is big and he is blue and he has a ridged penis. And things
valuable information.
I'm glad you put that in the summary. That was important.
Girls crash land on planet. Romance happens. Saving the girls. Alien human trafficking. Yes, it is.
Roro had it. Sparks note. Girls crash, romance.
Yes.
That's all you need to know.
Yes. It is an adult romance, so we're going to be talking about some things that are more risque and erotic fiction. So if that doesn't make you comfortable, please feel free to leave. Thank you for watching. Okay, here we go. Okay, non-spoiler thoughts.
Listen, I stand with what I told Steph, which is like, do not bring science into this. Bring only horny thoughts. Mm-hmm. If the thoughts are not horny, this is not the place for you. It's not gonna work.
Yeah. Immediately, I was like, but does this make sense? And scientifically, does that make sense? And this is like such faulty logic. Like, this is so stupid. And Natalie was like, you're thinking too hard. Stop. Just
stop. No. Useless. All that logic, no. In the trash. Trash it. No.
It's so illogical, but just so funny.
I think it's a lot about expectations going into stuff like that. And I think you do need someone to be like, listen, don't take this seriously.
Oh, it doesn't take itself seriously.
Yeah, exactly. No.
It doesn't.
I feel like it's in a non-spoiler way, because this is non-spoiler comments. It is always, those unbearable people who try and like police the stuff that other people read as being like low value literature. I feel like probably until I was like 16, 17, that was totally me. I was such a dick teenager. I was like, oh, you're reading that? God, I can't believe it. Like, but now, yeah. But like, retrospect, hindsight's 2020. We've all grown as people.
Yeah.
And then, but it is an interesting thing to pick up a book and read a book and kind of know the whole time you're reading it. You're like, this wasn't written for me. Like, I was not in the mind of like the target sales group that the author had when they were writing it. But I feel like that it is interesting. I feel like I would encourage people to do it and just read stuff that is so not only just out of your comfort zone, but stuff that you know for a fact is not aimed at you, just so you can see it from a completely other weird objective viewpoint.
Yeah, broaden the horizons. I'm gonna say Natalie's very pretty. I think Max, you may know this as well. I was reading Way of Kings for the past 3 weeks, and I paused halfway through this 1,000-page chunker to read Ice Planet Barbarians, and it was so much fun. It was a palate cleanser. I was like, I'm free.
Nice.
It's great to go from something that takes itself so seriously to something that's not intended to be taken seriously. It's just, you can read a book and have a good time. That's fine.
Yeah.
I think the popularity of this series speaks to that for sure. Like, you can just read stuff, and not everything you read has to have some kind of takeaway. You know? Yeah. I feel like while I was like, this book isn't particularly interesting to me, the experience of reading it, I think, was an interesting experience for me.
There's something, I think I'm going to stick with the positives for now, because there are some things that I think we're definitely going to be able to critique.
Yeah.
Some things that I'm like, this was a choice that you made, but we'll get to that. There is something refreshing about being in this alien world and just exploring the fauna and the flora and like the environment. And we don't get an explanation. We don't get a thesis as to the evolution of this species. It's just, here's the thing. There are piranhas. If you have this berry, the piranhas will go away. Now go take a bath.
Yes.
Sure.
If you kind of liked the setting of this one and that like small attempt at world building and wanted more of that, I would recommend, if you haven't read it already, the Ice Rigger trilogy by Alan Dean Foster, which is also like snowy planet covered in horrible monsters, strange aliens. I feel like there is also smut in that as well, but you know, it's like 60s smut, so it's not as good.
That's not the same.
Yeah. It is old school sci-fi pulp.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if can we talk about the smut and the erotic fiction of this in non-spoilers? I don't know if we can, unless someone can think of a way that we can.
I feel like we're gonna have to make the vaguest comments we can before the spoiler line. Get to the spoiler line really quickly, and then just like go crazy.
Okay. I don't think so. I mean, okay. It's a very straight book.
Painfully so, I would say.
So, I mean, that is definitely a non-spoiler comment that we can make. As far as I know, the other books also involve straight characters, and the way that this book kind of ends sets us up. Like, one thing I did enjoy about this book is it so easily sets it up where I can see where 20 more books came from. Like, you have all these side characters, you have this culture that they're exploring, you have these two worlds coming together, you also have the lingering aliens in the background. Are they going to come back and steal the girls again? What's happened with the human trafficking, right? So like, there's a potential there for more characters to be introduced. So there's something really interesting about a first book in a series that sets itself up so easily for there to be sequels, and there's no like question, like, because there's just so many options.
Do you know what I think would be really, really funny? If this series was the offshoot of a larger like universe, right? And that whole universe of stories was totally serious and not smart. and this one side story was just this one woman, Georgie, having like this fucking wild like smart adventure in this otherwise very, very sci-fi universe.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like there's potential for that. It's not going to happen, but there's potential for that with the implied backstory of Vectel's people. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Still in non-spoilers, but like with the implied things that happened, I'm like, I can imagine all those years ago that being a very sci-fi serious thing happening, and then but we're here now and
Yeah.
it's not that. So you know,
It definitely made me realize that I haven't read enough sci-fi smut.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I need to be exposed more to see whether I like it or not. You know what I mean? I need to have like a whole bucket of sci-fi smut before I decide whether it's for me.
I mean, I definitely think it's for me. I don't know that I'm necessarily going to continue this series, but I'm going to be looking for other content. Any other non-spoilery things that we can say?
No, I don't think so.
No, we're done.
I think we're
Okay,
good.
here we go.
Yeah. Moving on. Next.
All right, where do we start with this? Do we start at the abduction or do we start with the smut? Where are we going?
I think we should start honestly with the abduction, like the
Okay.
biggest elephant in the room, which is
Okay.
like, why do we have sexual assault and dubious consent
Yes.
in a series that like the whole point is we're just here for a silly little goofy time
Mhm.
fucking aliens. That's
Yes.
it.
Yes.
That-
The first, quarter of the book, maybe?
I would say around that.
Yeah, it revolves. There's trigger warnings for anyone who doesn't know. The version that I got didn't have trigger warnings. But I think Natalie, you said that like other versions have trigger warnings, right?
Yeah.
So what would we list the trigger warnings as? Definitely dubious consent, like you said.
So it was the main ones were like sexual assault, dubious consent. I'm trying to see if I can pull it up because I definitely included
Big R, rape.
Yeah, for sure.
What? Is there anything else?
I mean, because there's kidnapping, the death.
And kidnapping, yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, because from the very beginning, the very first few pages is the girls are getting kidnapped by the aliens for this whatever human trafficking thing that we don't really get any more background info on after they're dumped on the planet. But they're basically these aliens who don't look like the aliens that are on the ice planet. They look like another species of aliens because they're kind of described as oranges and basketballs. And they are hurting these girls using all of the things that we've described, and the girls are trying to figure out how to get out. And the one girl, the main girl, Georgie, ultimately steals a gun, and they lure one of the aliens into the cargo area, cause chaos, beat them to a pulp, and the cargo bay gets dropped off at this ice planet to be picked up at a later time.
Yeah. Which, speaking of the brutal murder of that alien, it was literally brutal. Like she bashed his head in completely
and kept going.
They had to pull her back, be like,
yes,
his head, it's okay, it's over. He's not gonna come up again. No.
Mm-hmm. And in that same cargo area, while this is happening, we're learning that the criteria for being a woman selected for the abduction is that you have to be healthy. And what else? And fertile.
And breedable, basically.
Breedable.
Okay.
Submissive and breedable.
Yes. That was it.
Oh, another trigger warning. They do talk about abortion as well.
That was my interpretation of that scene also, but it could have also been interpreted as once they found out that she was pregnant, they just yeeted her off the ship.
Oh, I think they
I'm pretty sure that it was forced abortion in that case. So if that's a trigger for anybody else as well. What else?
It felt like a lot of like shock tactic to me. Like throwing all that stuff in the first like 15, 20 pages and then like not talking about it again. I don't really fully understand the point of like why that choice was made to have all that stuff in there, aside from making what happened next better by contrast, maybe.
Maybe like framing the whimsy with the dark.
Maybe.
I don't know. Yeah, but when I think I was reading the first quarter of the book and it was so dark, and I think I messaged the chat and I was like, was I bamboozled? Is this not a romance? What is happening?
Yeah. I remember having that experience. I was like, why are people like talking about this like it's such a silly little time when we have murder, we have rape, we have kidnapping, everything. I'm like, hello. But the rest of the series, and she does have that in her author's note. And again, I don't know if it's in the print version or not. I was reading the ebook through Kindle Unlimited, so she does have the note there being like, this is the darkest one of the whole series. And mostly it was because at the time I was reading a bunch of dark romances and it just kind of snuck in, but that was not really the intention for the series as a whole. So
that's the thing that happens, but apparently doesn't happen again. So there's that.
No, I mean, not where I got, because I was not going to read 19 books or however many they are. It was not going to happen. But as far as I got.
If anybody watching this has read all 19 books, please share your experiences.
I'll be very impressed.
Dedication.
Yeah.
Okay. So she gets off the ship. The girls are hurt. They need rescuing. So Georgie is the one who is, I think, least injured by this point.
Yeah.
And so she goes in search of help, ends up in a cave where she falls asleep. And this big blue guy walks in and says, something smells nice. And it's her pussy.
The way you described it was like in Tom and Jerry, where he follows like the pie smell.
Yes, exactly what happened. That is this video is so gonna get demonetized. If it was, I don't even care. That's exactly what happened. No.
Short answer, no.
No. Like maybe one day book 2 will happen, but it is not a priority. Natalie has already read the first 4. Max.
I think, I feel like the fact that Natalie, you've got 4 books in and decided that you're not going to keep going. I feel like I'm not even going to push on to 2. I'm going to trust your opinion on that.
I will elaborate on why, but we don't have to get there yet.
Okay. You know what? Since I'm not reading the next ones, I would be really interested to hear about the next 3 from you.
Would you mind at the end, like towards the end of the live, giving us a summary of things?
I don't mind.
Okay.
We'll get
there.
The
entire series. Oh my gosh. God. Okay. That's what I want to hear. Okay. So some of the books are better than others, where others were crap. Okay. So are there any particular ones that were your favorite? Please tell us, like, what made you keep going? Which ones were the better ones? There's a spin-off series? Wait, what?
Listen, I don't know. I walked away, so I was like, no, because I know there's like the novellas, like there's the main series, and then there's the honeymoon mini series, because there are different honeymoon ones. And I don't know if there's another sub, like if that spin-off is a different thing. I don't know. Because the main things I read were like the primary series. I think I might have read Georgie's and Vectal's honeymoon novella, but that's the only one I think that I read. Maybe.
Okay. So Bechtel walks in the cave and goes, pussy. And then what happens? Like, where do we go from here? So he assaults her, right?
Yeah.
And she wakes up, and this is where the dubious consent is. How do we describe their relationship?
I mean, it's complicated, I would say. Because again, part of it is that weird dynamic. Like at the beginning of the story, we have a very real, very serious, like rape scene. But then it's like dubious because she's kind of like, This kind of feels good though. I'm kind of vibing. He knows what he's doing.
And then,
Versus like, okay, where do we draw that line then? Because hello.
and from that point on, she is actively coming on to him and making semi-logical conclusions of he's an alien, he's blue, I can't get pregnant.
Yes, exactly. Because at this point, she's like, what would it hurt to fuck this alien if I can convince him to help the other girls out? You know, what harm is there? Not like I could have a baby with an alien. Never.
No, never. Books 5, 6, 12, and 15 were the ones that I enjoyed the most.
Interesting. 5 and 6, which I did not make it.
Okay. I want to know, do 5, 6, 12, and 15 happen to revolve around any of the characters that we've been introduced to thus far?
That would be a good thing to know.
Natalie, you were one away from it getting really good.
Apparently,
You should stuck with it.
good. I don't know. I mean, I would say, again, I don't want to get there. We'll get there when we get there. I have my reasons. And
okay, back to Georgie and Bechtel, right? They're dynamic. So she's liking it. She wants to sleep with him some more. The sex slowly starts to ramp up. I think by the time we got to like halfway through the book and they had regular like full on smashed, I'm like, okay, there's still half a book more. So like, where are we going with this? And so for me, by the time we got to maybe like their fourth time smashing, I was kind of bored.
Honestly, I'm more inclined to agree. And I was looking at other reviews to say that, like, actually, there's not as much smashing in here as I thought there was going to be, frankly. So, like, part of it, how do I say this? Where am I trying to go with this thought? Someone speak. My brain is
okay. So here's a thought. I have something tells me that this thought is not related to what you're trying to say, but here's a thought that I'm having. On his nether regions, he has what would be the equivalent of a when you have a toy that has a specific addition where it's meant to be titillating to the clitoris area. This is something very specific and I think worth mentioning because it's a joke in the book for him to be like, ha ha ha, you have a third nipple. And she's like, what are you talking about? And then he plays with it and she goes, that's not a nipple, silly. And it's like, okay, but
the infamous scene that Max was like, did she just call him
buddy? There's nothing sexier than coming onto a girl and she calls you like champ.
But I also don't think there's anything sexy of a man being like, what is this third nipple?
There's a lot of like really unsexy smut in this one.
Yeah, it was like, what are we doing? So, I mean, like just the thought of, okay, if that part of the female anatomy is not present in their females, why does he have this additional ridge that presses on two other places depending on the position that gives her pleasure? I'm curious, what is this adaptation and evolution? But it's also just a very convenient spot. So I'm
exactly. Like, Steph, what is the point of the evolution? There is none.
Nothing.
That humans will eventually land on this alien planet and they need this so that they can pleasure them better.
Yes.
Done. Yes. We solved it.
and this, yes, there's no emotional attraction here. It was just smut.
Steph, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to correct you, but a day into meeting this guy, she tells him she loves him.
Couldn't be me. Couldn't be me.
This is some hardcore character development, I think.
See, a train wreck. I needed to step off that train. Needed to get off of it. No,
The
no.
train was on fire and Natalie said, yeet.
Exactly. No.
Yeah, I can't. I don't think I could continue a series where there is no emotional attraction. It's like, I mean, if I wanted a some just like some smut for the sake of smut, I'd read a short story erotica.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I get that. I feel like in a way we get a little bit more emotion from Vectel because he has the Kui, which we have not mentioned at all up
Yes.
to this point. He has the Kui, and that's the thing that's like, she's the one. And so that for him already, because of his culture, his upbringing, has significance. So he has emotional buy-in into this dynamic because he knows, oh, I'm resonating for her, aka that's my soulmate. She's the perfect person for me to have baby aliens with.
But not from Georgie. It's one-sided in the beginning.
Yes, in the beginning it's one-sided because he is the only one that has the Kui. So he, again, like I said, has more of that emotional buy-in, while Georgie's just like, well, this feels nice and a good way to spend my time. I do, at least she does feel eventually guilty that it's like, oh wait, all my homies are
You forgot
fighting
about
for
that
their
pretty
lives.
quick, I think.
So at least she has some decency to be like, well, I've been having a very nice time. They're freezing their asses off, starving.
Dying.
Literally dying. We need to get them out of there.
It's so funny. It's okay. We could either take this conversation in two tangents. We can either start to talk about the Kui, or we could talk about the different plot conveniences in order for them to save the girls. Where do we want to go from here?
I feel like this whole thing was just plot conveniences, to be fair. The fact that in a universe brimming with life, anybody would have even close to compatible genitalia is like straight up plot coincidence.
Yeah.
Writer's convenience number one. And then, breathable atmosphere, random planet. It's just one after the other.
Yeah, everything.
I mean, I would argue, again, I'm not really saying it's not plot convenience because that's what you need for what the author is trying to accomplish. But like, well, we do have established that they are picking them because they are compatible for some species. That's why they have high value in the market. Well, not even Georgie, the ones in the pods. We have not mentioned the ones in the pods, whatever. Like, they have a high value because of that compatibility. And on top of that, because there is good cargo for them, and like in their lens, it's precious cargo, they're not going to drop them somewhere where they're going to die because they want to make the most money possible. So like, sure, if the only ones that make it are the ones in the pods because they're in a completely controlled environment, fine, but they're not going to be like, we'll just dump them all there and we don't give a shit if the ones that aren't in the pods die. Like, they're going to try to find somewhere where they can somewhat survive, because then they get more money.
Well, we could also argue that we don't necessarily get any specific reasoning from anybody as to why this particular planet was the place where the cargo was dumped, other than it could just be that, again, they were like, the girls who were outside of the cargo were the excess, right? They were potentially expendable because the girls who were in the cryostasis place, whatever, in the cargo area, were the first batch that they were going for. So putting them in this ice planet could be just to preserve the cryostasis that they're in, and not necessarily because they care about Georgie and the other girls that are there. So I don't know that we have any reasoning to say like, oh, well, they chose this planet because it's a place where they're intending to sell rather than this is just an environment that we need to maintain our cargo. But again, that could just me be projecting logic. I don't know.
I mean, well, definitely they're not trying to sell them there because they would have just landed there purposefully themselves to do the selling. So that was just a stopping point. It's like, our ship is in shambles. Let's drop our cargo here. We'll come back when we have our better equipment that's not all fucked up.
Mm-hmm. Can I share something from further in the series about the aliens themselves?
Sure.
Yeah.
Tell us, please. Tell us.
I will say as well, speaking about writers' conveniences, plot conveniences, I really do think getting rid of Dominique was so that certain things didn't have to be addressed.
Yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
That felt like, actually, I don't think that I noticed it as much the first time I read it, but this time while I was reading it, I was like, that's the easy way out. Being like, well, she's the one who got raped because we had to first establish the seriousness of the situation. But no, we don't want to deal with the dynamics of someone who was raped then being left in this planet, or basically indirectly they're all
going to get assaulted
in having to be with an alien. So
yeah.
Oh, that's in book one.
It's part of in book one. Yeah. So when we get to So anyway, let's talk about that. Yeah. So so everyone is not from there. Everyone is brought there to that planet. And again, another convenience is that they find the ship that Georgie sees a blinking light and is like, ooh, big shiny button. What this button do? And then she hits the button and then it turns on and it's like, hello, human. Would you like to speak all the languages? And then she goes, yes. And then it smashes her in the face and then she can speak the language.
That to me was honestly the biggest part that didn't make any sense, which again, this is why I turn off my brain and I'm like, it doesn't matter. But my biggest thing was actually culturally, it's been like 260 years, I think is what they said, since the ship crashed onto this planet. I'm like, so you're telling me in only not even 300 years, you're going to completely forget the history of your people?
Yeah.
That's like 7 or 8 generations tops.
Yeah.
I was like, no, you're not. Like they obviously have like the Elder's Cave is important, but it's like, how do you not know that it's a spaceship? How do you not know that the possibilities are there? Because that's the part where we tie into like they're barbarians in Georgie's mind because they don't have all this technology. And like, it's fine if they can't replicate it in this new world that they don't have all their shit basically that they would normally have. But it's like, how do we just completely forget that this was a thing that we were able to do? We just do not have the resources for it right now. Plus, we were not the ones who invented spaceships and stuff like that. So we don't even have the knowledge itself of like, how would you make a spaceship? It's just like the original ones were just that doesn't mean they knew how to make one.
Yeah. The narrative forces these people into seeming like they are more barbarian-esque when that didn't need to be that the way that they are portrayed. The fact that it's even titled Barbarians and that the entire time that they're referred to is specifically from Georgie herself, I think is problematic. Like,
yeah, it's kind of like early 1900s, like exotic Nubian barbarian woman stuff, you know?
Yeah. For me, that whole word choice was annoying because it's like, there's nothing barbarian about this people. It's like, they're not violent for any reason. They have their own structure in society. So they have their leader, which obviously, of course, Vectel is their leader. They have their whole system of like, okay, let's delegate who is responsible for what. And so right now we're in the harsh winter season. So some of our hunters are out to make sure we can get some food and make it through the winter. So like literally there's nothing barbaric about it. Like
Mhm.
nothing. It's just, well, they don't have indoor plumbing like Earth. So
One of them thought to press the big shiny red button, so they must be barbaric.
The fact that this ship was just left perfectly intact and working and
exactly.
functional
Yep. Until Georgie came along.
until Georgie came along.
Yeah. So she's going to add to their gene pool. God, so painful.
Her brilliance as
Brilliance,
a
yes.
Floridian woman.
Oh my God, I forgot that she's from Florida. I was saying that the whole time. Okay, so Max, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there's like a whole meme on the internet, at least over here in the States, about like Florida having the most ridiculous news.
Oh, I know about Florida.
Okay.
Man. I know about Florida, man.
Okay. Like Floridian woman gets abducted by aliens and what, like I'm just like, oh my God.
Floridian does sound like some kind of Star Wars race, though, when you say it.
Oh yeah, and the planet was named not Hoth.
Yeah.
I died. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the point is, whole spaceship thing, absurd, ridiculous, doesn't make any sense. And it's like the little beacon to ask for help doesn't work. And yet this whole system that could teach you the languages of many different planets, that's working
Just
like nothing happened.
Absolutely.
Like nothing happened. No problems there.
So ridiculous. Oh my God. Okay, so what else? So they get the she speaks their language now. They're able to communicate. There's a point right before that, where she still can't communicate with him, and she wants him to take her up the mountain to go save the other girls. And in that moment, I was thinking to myself, okay, you don't speak his language, but there might be other ways that you might be able to signal.
Yeah, right. I was thinking this
that
too.
you need help, right? So I'm thinking to myself, okay, they're covered by snow. He understands the word Georgie, and she understands the Bechtel. And I think by that time, the only other word she understands is no in his language, right? So she could like maybe draw something like Georgie is me. This is Bechtel. Oh, look, there's 5 other Georgies. Go there, like something. But her tactic is, I'm gonna seduce him. I'm gonna grab his big blue alien junk and tell him in English he'll get more if he takes me there. And he says yes. And it's like, why?
Naturally.
That was the
somehow we need to get the smut in there, Steph.
I mean, she was gonna get it 5 minutes later anyway.
But we need to have a little bit of reasoning why, a little bit of a little something.
He came in the gate eating her out. We don't need all this subtlety, flirting, whatever, because 5 minutes later they were going hard in the cave anyway. Like, what is this like fake subtlety, flirtation? I don't need that. Just go do the thing.
People don't read this for the tension.
What tension?
No.
None.
Mm-mm.
Absolutely none. But it was hilarious. I'm just like, okay, Georgie, you and your human logic. He's blue. I can't. We must be so far removed. I can't get pregnant. Okay, anyway, moving on.
I think we should connect the fact that they are from that planet, like Bechtel's people, to the Kui and like the significance of it. Mm-hmm. Because I have thoughts. Mm-hmm. So, like, because Bechtel's people are not from this planet, they took on the Kui, which is a worm. By humans' terms, it's a worm that males in every species.
You're right. I made a great mistake.
We will also get the crust.
If I pause for a second, if anything, this speaks to the fact that human beings will fuck anything.
Yeah. Okay. So they take on this worm because they form a symbiotic relationship where the worm, the kui, gets to be in a nice warm body that doesn't leave it exposed to the cold elements. And because of that, the kui, it reinforces basically all the, how do I say this? I don't know enough science for this, but basically reinforces their immune system, their temperature, their ability to like manage the temperature of this planet, etc. Point is, they help each other out survive in this planet. And Georgie is completely disgusted by this fact and it's like, ew, worms. And I'm like, girl, you will live if you take the stupid worm. It's not a big deal. It really isn't. She's like, almost like, it's a parasite. I'm like, a parasite would destroy you and doesn't give a shit about helping you. This is a symbiotic relationship, tit for tat, as it were. This is not going to do anything bad to you. Stop. I was so mad.
It's a parasite, she says, while also she's growing a baby.
Right.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
Right. Like, huh?
were the kui from this planet originally, from the ice planet?
Well, it doesn't tell us otherwise, but I think so.
Yeah.
Then how the fuck was that figured out?
So quickly, right? Because it was said that, so they basically have a week from when they enter this atmosphere to get a kui inside of them, because their body will start to deteriorate from the materials that are in the air that their body cannot process. So when the Bechtel people landed on this planet, someone had to get a kui in the first 7 days, and they were like, now y'all gonna get some worms. Like, just,
that's another plot convenience, because it doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
It doesn't make any sense because exactly, like, their numbers dwindled significantly because it took them a while to figure it out. But how do we get to, okay, we can eat some of these animals around us, but this huge fucking animal, if we eat it, look inside its guts. Ooh, look, worms. What might they do?
Let's put that worm in me.
I think I'm gonna play devil's advocate just a tiny, for like 5 seconds, because if it was me and I went up to Bechtel and I was like, "Ooh, Bechtel, baby," like you're purring just for me, and then he goes, "Nah, honey, that's my worm in my chest wagging its tail," I'd be like, "Oh, hold on." I mean, for a minute, I would be like, oh, that's kind of gross. But if you're telling me I need to eat one to survive, let's freaking go.
And you don't even need to eat one. That's my biggest thing. That's my biggest thing. Literally, you don't even need to eat it. I was telling Steph about this. I'm like, if I'm stranded in an alien planet and I somehow am able to communicate with the alien life there, and they're like, listen, if you want to live, you gotta take in this worm. Even if I had to eat it, I would be grossed out, but I do it. I'd be like, fine, disgusting, but let's go. You're telling me I don't even have to eat it? You just cut me a little bit here and you put it in there and it just, and then easy. That's light work. No. I'm like, I would have asked 5 days ago. I'm like, why weren't we doing this already?
But on that same note, can we please talk about how, if it's technically the kui that choose each other,
is it even love? Is it even love at all?
Is it love? Also, we know that the kui have a stronger connection than what the people decide, because we get from the healing woman that she wanted to be with Bechtel, but her kui decided on someone else, blah, 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 blah. Why is everybody straight? Why don't the kui choose others? Why are the cultural values of these people in masculine body, feminine body, procreating to make a baby is the only form of love, when it's the kuis that make the decision?
Does
doesn't
this?
make sense.
I feel like with this kind of thing, it probably speaks to some kind of view of the author. Sadly, and I'm like, clearly the author is like, the reason for relationships is to make a baby.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And that's the be all and end all for them. Maybe, I don't know. I'd like to hear their take on why they didn't include any kind of queer rep. But
For me, it's like a matter there's no logic at all, because it's not like the Kui don't already have an inhabitable symbiotic relationship with something else,
Mhm.
because it's not established that they're existing in the bigger creature, I can't remember what it's called,
Yeah.
is bad for them.
Mhm.
So they have no reason to be within the bodies of these aliens and be focused on their reproduction, being like, ooh, if they reproduce, we get more vessels that we can now live in. Like there's no logical reason for that. At least it's not established narratively. So there really is no real reason for it to be forced to be straight. So like it's that whole, I was so pissed off when she gets there, when she gets to the caves where they live, and she's like, oh my God, all these repressed men who have not been able to be with a woman. I'm like, because every single one only wants to be with a woman. Not two of them, not even two of them could have been like, I don't need no woman. It's fine. Together we'll have a perfectly great time. Not even two of them.
No.
Stop. Stop. I can't.
Not an option. They would rather be alone. And that's okay if they want to be alone. But in what we've established is that is not an option.
That's also the other part. I'm like, they can't be gay or not even want a relationship. Like,
see, that would have been interesting though. That would have been interesting if like some of them were gay and the Kui was still making them like want something that their brain didn't want.
Right.
Like that could have been a really interesting plot point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Missed opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even that the person doesn't want to mate, doesn't want whatever the societal expectation is, but they're being forced into a relationship because of the Kui. And it's like, but no, that's not an option. In that same vein, I'm going to bring it back to the smut for a second, because after all this is kind of resolved in some way, and at the end, so everyone's agreed, they've taken the Kui, they're gonna go live in the village, have a great time, blah, 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 right? Everybody's an Ice Planet Barbarian now. And so they are like, so Georgie and Bechtel are doing doggy style on a rock, right? And then they see in the distance the alien spaceship come to pick up the cargo. So they pause mid fucking to say, oh snap, the aliens are back. Aliens hover for a minute or two. Aliens decide, whoop, guess our plan failed. They leave. Georgie looks at Bechtel and I was like, all right, honey, let's keep going. And then they just keep going. It's like, what?
Wild.
Don't understand.
Incomprehensible.
That's why I'm reading. I'm probably like a 3 or 4. I give us like 3 stars. I might continue for a bit and see where it goes, but definitely don't think. Yeah, we're at the same. We're not going to continue. Oh, but it was fun while it lasted. Just beginning to end shenanigans.
It's wild. What a ride.
No, but like the whole thing is also like part of what makes me deeply uncomfortable about the Kui is this idea that because it's like finding the perfect breedable mate, it's like there is no choice. Like you will resonate for someone and that person will resonate back and you will have their child.
It kind of honks of that fucking werewolf shit from Twilight. Didn't they do like the weird Bondy thing?
Oh, ooh. That was
kind of
Let's
has
not
that
open that
flavor.
box,
It
Max.
has that same flavor.
no.
Let's not open it. Mm-mm.
Oh, you just brought me back to a place I didn't want to go.
Correct. I'm like, do not take me to those dark times. Dark times.
There was so much wrong with that. There's so many.
They were layers.
There's like right at the back of like your repressed memory, a really creaky door just opens.
Yeah.
Slightly.
That's in the box of like things I wish I could forget, and yet I cannot.
So painful.
So tell us what happens next, Natalie. I'm dying to know.
So there's nothing too exciting, frankly, that happens next, because the rest of the series is more honestly what I think was her original intent, which is just humans getting it on with aliens. So like part of why I continued was because like the next one has a trope that I like, which is instead of grumpy sunshine, it's just grumpy, because it's Liz and Rahosh. I always called him Rahush because I read it as an ebook. I did not listen to how to say the names, but it's Rahosh and Liz, and pretty much they do resonate for each other. But she's like, well, I didn't get a choice in this, but she's horny and he's horny. And so the whole thing is them being like, we're horny for each other. How can I get her to just like me, basically? Which I'm like, well, taking her off into the wilderness is not a point in your favor, sir, but sure. So like it just, mostly I just enjoyed the grumpy dynamics, and her also being like, you just want to care for me and you think I'm so weak and shit, but no, you're a hunter, I'm gonna hunt with you. Fuck you, shut up. You're not gonna leave me at home and I'm so frail and delicate. It's not happening. So some of it is just her proving that she's like, I can kick ass. I don't know what preconceived notions you have, but I can kick ass. So stop.
Okay, that sounds fun though.
Yeah, so that one was still fun. That's why I then picked up the next one. And then the next one, if I'm remembering correctly, is the one that I have a problem with, the magical fixing of infertility.
Oh no.
Because the whole point of that one is that she has this big secret, and the big secret is that she cannot get pregnant, and she doesn't know how she ended up in this situation in the first place because she has infertility problems. And so one of the aliens is like, listen, I don't care that I'm not resonating for you. It's fine. It's cool. I just want to have a good time with you. And I'm convinced, I'm sure. So that's actually one of the relationships that I read, that they genuinely get together with no resonance. There is no resonance. They choose to be together. But how do we get to the resonance? Well, it takes the Kui a while to be able to heal her womb that cannot carry children. So once the womb is healed, hooray, resonance. Now we can have babies. It's like
Pain.
No.
No. So too much convenience. Like there's comical convenience, and then there's like, you made a choice convenience. Why did you choose to do that? That's just no.
Yeah.
Pain.
And then I can barely remember the fourth one because I was just bored. I was just bored. I read it as a palate cleanser, but then that's the one I most remember, that like they are in isolation for some reason that I cannot recall anymore, even though technically it's the one I read most recently. They're in isolation for some reason, and she starts to be like, I don't want to go back to the community with everyone else. I want it to just be the two of us. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about? No. I refuse to accept this. And so that's the one that I killed it for me. Apart from the fact that it was just reinforced over and over and over again how fucking straight this whole world was. I'm like, I'm tired. I'm tired of there being no possibility, no concept of it being any other way except man and woman make baby.
Yeah, that's it. That's where the story ends. I mean, listen, by this logic, right? If what's the name of the giant creature where they get the Sakawi or something? There's a giant creature which they
let's call it Big Cooey.
big
Gooey.
giant Cooey, right? And in it, when they hunt it, it's got like dozens of Cooeys inside of it. So technically, shouldn't they all have been resonating if it's Cooey to Cooey? They could have been like, look at this big, delicious, giant Cooey thing. Isn't it hot? But no.
So you need the big Cooey resonating for other big Cooey.
Something like if it's the worm, that they take one worm, right? They first of all, okay, they hunt the thing. It's got like let's say it's got 25 worms in it, right? And they take the worms and they give one to 25 other people. Only those worms are only going to resonate in pairs. They're not going to resonate together because I feel like if you have a Cooey and I have a Cooey, and then this giant thing's got 25 Cooeys, one of us is going to resonate with the giant thing that's over there. Like, it doesn't make sense. We're all aliens, and the only thing that's native to this planet is the giant Cooey thing. So why aren't we all resonating with that? Like, why isn't someone fucking that?
The hilarious thing about this story is it's set in a world where the only thing that actually has soulmates is worms. Everyone else is just dragged along for the ride, while the worms are like living out their destiny stories.
Oh, it's so ridiculous. So ridiculous.
Oh, man.
I don't know. That's what we got. But yeah, and then last thing I think of to say, I don't know, unless you guys have anything you guys want to add to this, but when Georgie goes back to the cargo area to bring Vectel and the others there for help, and she says, "This is Vectel. He's this big blue guy who I've slept with a bunch," right? Like she doesn't say it in those words, but they figure out that she's been having a good time while they're starving. And their response is relatively positive. They're like, "Oh, that's nice. That's good for you."
Yeah.
I would be so mad. I would be like, "Girl, you left me here to starve.
I'm dirty. I'm hungry. I'm cold. And you were out there cleaning yourself, eating, and fucking."
Yes, the whole nine.
No.
There was no urgency at all.
No.
None whatsoever.
I'm like, you're not my friend, much less are you my leader. You're my enemy.
Yes. How dare you? And I know it's like they tried to make it seem like, okay, they had to work slowly because the storm this and the storm that. But when it was convenient, they made it. Y'all could have pushed harder. You didn't like why? Why is this a thing?
Steph, you needed to seduce him first.
That's my fault.
This is a multi-stage plan. Come on, get with the game.
Georgie was too big brain for me.
This is clearly so intellectual. It just went over our heads.
Of course.
Yeah. Feeling very stupid after reading this.
Anyway, 3 stars.
Yeah, in conclusion, 3 stars.
Yes.
2 and a bit.
That's right. Yes. If I didn't laugh as much as I did, it would have been 2.5 for me. Okay. Any last thoughts before we wrap it up?
I think anyone that continues this series is very brave. They deserve some kind of medal.
My hat is off.
Good job, folks.
Oh, I think we should ask for Max, that Max is like, give me actual freaky little guys.
Give me some good stuff.
Yes.
We didn't address that part. We have
I feel like Tina came in clutch with some good recs. So I'm going to be looking up some Tina recs for sure.
Nice.
So Because honestly, yes, it is boring when it's just like, well, it's just a blue guy, and yeah, he's tall, and yeah, his dick is different, but okay, and I mean, I can't speak to too many that are sci-fi in particular because I don't read as many that are sci-fi. I mostly read fantasy ones. So that's why I can't give too many max because I'm like, no, I'm more of a fantasy person.
I'm sure the chat has my back. I'm sure I'm going to get spammed over the next few days.
Yes.
Ready for it.
Please do. So if anybody has any sci-fi adult romance recommendations, please drop them in the comments or join the Discord so you can
especially if they are more creature-like than just human blue or human green.
It's very Star Trek, isn't it?
Yeah. Or human with a basketball head.
Wow, sexy.
I mean,
to each their own.
There's at least one person reading the book that was like, oh yeah.
Okay, I think that's it for today. Thank you guys so much for joining. We will see you next time. Bye.